recorded. And also you will notice there is a chat window. Okay, if anybody has any questions throughout the presentation, please do put your questions in the chat window. This session, I'm going to be running it. I have got my two colleagues. I've got Jenny Stafford Brown, who is a sector manager, who I know many people will know and will have met. Jenny will be answering queries and will probably have an input in this session. And also we've got Gareth Reynolds, who's the curriculum development manager, who's also on this call and will be answering questions and supporting any way he can. The presentation I have put in the materials. I will also send this presentation out to everybody after this meeting. I'll send it in an email, so if anybody isn't able to download it, it will be with you. So what's the purpose of this session? Well, just before we start, I would like to sort of say what an amazing job everybody is doing. We do understand it is very, very difficult times for teachers, for parents, for learners. Okay, and I know how much you are adapting, how much you are being creative, and it is something that we are fully aware of, and we would like to support you throughout the delivery of the qualifications for this academic year and also going forward. So the purpose of this meeting is really to support you, okay, and give you an update on the situation with the delivery and assessment of the qualifications that are within the sports sector, which include the TEC Award in Sport Activity and Fitness, the BTEC Level 1/Level 2 in First in Sport, and then the Nationals in Sport, QCF, RQF 2016-2019, and the Sport and Exercise Science qualifications, QCF and RQF. And I do appreciate that there are many communications that are coming out on a daily basis, and it's really difficult to keep up to date because things are changing. Things are changing around the world on a daily basis. So please, we do understand it's difficult, and that's really why we're trying to put this session on, to make sure that everybody has up-to-date information and everybody's fully aware and hears it from the board, from Pearson, from myself and the sector manager and curriculum development manager, okay, and you're not hearing via whispers around from various schools. Oops. So what do we know so far? Okay, what has happened in the last since the start of September? Well, I think everybody is aware that we did put some proposals and we proposed some adaptations to the assessment of our qualifications. And I think it is really important to specify that those proposals, I know there were many rumours going around, but all our proposals, okay, whatever proposal we have submitted, then they required that all the content that's relevant to the specification that you're delivering must be covered. So I know there was some proposals of some assessment not taking place, but many teachers took it that it was about not having to deliver a unit. That categorically that was not true. Okay, our proposals was about the assessment, not about the content. So our proposals were about that all content needed to be taught so learners are prepared to progress onto the next educational step, and our proposals, our recommendations were that centres should teach and assess mandatory units first. And though they haven't changed, that all the content must be delivered, okay, over the course of the 1 year or 2 years, depends on how long it takes you to deliver it. What we are encouraging is that from now, that when you complete a unit, so when the candidates have handed in of all their assignments and it's been marked and a grade has been given, that you submit those grades on Edexcel online as interim grades. And we are encouraging, so if you're doing one of the units on the BTEC First or the Nationals or the Tech Awards, if you complete the unit and you have everything, all the evidence and everything, then we are recommending that you bank those units on Edexcel Online as soon as is possible. They will be as interim grades, they are not final grades, because they will only become final once the SV has signed them off, as released them for certification. But that's something that I'm not sure if everybody is aware of, but that's definitely something that we have announced recently, that we would encourage people to bank those grades. So just going through the various qualifications and where we are with what needs to be what evidence needs to be there, what needs to be covered. I know we've got the Tech Award in Sport, Activity and Fitness. I know it isn't the biggest qualification that we have, but there are many learners who are studying on this programme. There have been some adaptations to this qualification, and further guidance can be found. There is a link in this presentation to further guidance if you are delivering it and you haven't seen it. And these adaptations are for all learners who are registered on the course, regardless what year they're in. It's for all learners who are registered on the course. And there have been in the two components, component 1 and component 3, there have been some slight changes. In component 1, okay, understand the body and the supporting technology for sport and activity. Okay, normally candidates have to describe in detail 4 different areas of technological advancements and how they are used within a sport. Moving forward, for any learner who is studying that unit that is registered on the course, level 2 learners will be able to describe in detail just 2 different areas of technological advancement and how they'll be used within the sport. Okay, so instead of the 4, it's a 2, and for level 1, instead of the 2 types of technological advancement, it's only 1. In relation to component 3, learning aim C, where it's applying the principle, component 3, applying the principles of sport and activity. Learning aim C, there has been a slight change in the requirements. In the assessment criteria, it says about the main component, that learners have to lead the main component of a planned sport stroke activity session. That has been changed, that it can be any component. So it could be the warm-up, the main component, or the cool down. So there has been some changes there just to component 1 and component 3. The learning aim C in component 1 and the learning aim C in component 3. Okay, so that's on the Tech Award. There are a few questions that are coming in, so I'm just going to look at the questions that have come in. Okay, Mark has asked, does the submitting of provisional grades include grades that were submitted during the summer for incomplete units, such as Unit 2, as we were unable to complete this due to lockdown? We did this and were informed by Penny that they would be banked. If you have already submitted the grades, if you did submit grades last year, they are still, as a centre assessed grade, they are still in the bank. Okay, so if the candidates have already got a grade for a unit, then you do not, on Edexcel Online, then you don't need to submit anything else. This is for any work that is completed now, going forward. Anything that is completed and assessed and evidenced, that's what you will need to submit the grade. Somebody's just let me, oh, sorry, just let me go back to that question. If staffing and timetabling do not allow for units to be completed before the end of term and mandatory units first, will this be a problem? At this moment in time, Simon, okay, it is really important that the all the content for all the units are completed. Okay, what we are recommending is that you look at the mandatory units first. Okay, but at this moment in time, then all the units must be delivered, must be assessed. So Michelle's asked, does it matter if we haven't started this year with a mandatory unit? For example, we've started Unit 5 and then we'll be doing Unit 3 after Christmas. Is that a problem as we're in the middle of Unit 5? Yeah, actually, Michelle, that's a really good question. Okay, our advice is to complete the mandatory units before in this situation, complete the mandatory units before the optional units. However, if in your situation you feel that you can complete Unit 5 by Christmas and you then can complete Unit 3 after Christmas, then there's no reason that you can't. I'm not advising you to suddenly stop in the middle of a unit and then do a different unit. But if you are coming towards the end of a unit and you've got 2 units to do, one is a mandatory and one is an optional, we would recommend that you concentrate on the mandatory unit just going forward for this academic year.
Penny, would you like me to jump in as we're getting loads of questions, which is great. We do enjoy the interactivity in the questions where we can help. And if the questions are going to be addressed later on in the presentation, I think we'll leave them to be addressed there. But I can see, Tom, you've asked about Unit 3 for the synoptic assessment or the synoptic unit. So we would encourage, and I know, Andrew, you suggested you're doing Units 1 and 2 first, the first 2 mandatory units within the first award. And then Unit 3 would sit very nicely after that, whilst it is synoptic, and we do encourage it to be delivered at the end. If you do it after Units 1 and 2, a lot of the content you'll see across those 2 units is then taken forward in Unit 3. So it'd sit very nicely to be positioned after those 2, and then you've got the optional unit that you can complete alongside Unit 3 should you wish, but we'd still encourage you to do it towards the end of your delivery, taking on board the fact that it's a mandatory unit and doing it towards the end of or after the first Units 1 and 2, which are also mandatory.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jenny. Okay, so that's the has anybody got any questions about the TEC award in sport, activity and fitness? Okay, the unit component 1 and component 3, there have been a couple of amendments to the assessment. Obviously, if you've already delivered any of those units, okay, and you've delivered so that they do the 4 different areas, then that's absolutely fine. Okay, so for the BTEC First Award and Nationals in Sport and Exercise Science, at the moment, okay, we're not in a position to confirm any changes to those qualifications. Okay, it is a requirement that you deliver and assess all the units on those courses. So if you're delivering the BTEC first, then there are 4 units, 3 mandatory, 1 optional, and you assess all of those. And as soon as the learners have completed a unit and a grade awarded, should be uploaded as an interim result on Edexcel Online. And we recommend that you focus on the mandatory units. However, okay, I know people may have read other different things or what our proposals were. Further adaptations may be implemented if disruption to teaching, learning and assessment increases regionally or nationally. We are in contact with Ofqual and DFE on a regular basis as a company, as an awarding organisation. All the awarding organisations are liaising with Ofqual and the DFE, and things are changing quite regularly. And there may be down the line, we don't know, there may be further adaptations later on. Okay, depends on what happens in sort of the next few weeks, but at the moment for the BTEC First and the BTEC Nationals, then it is a requirement that you deliver and you assess all the units. Let's have a look. There's a few questions that have come in. Yeah, Joanna, I think Jenny's just answered your query. Unit 3 is a synoptic unit, but mandatory and has been recommended in the past that it's done last. Okay, Tom, I think you know that is very true that Unit 3 is a mandatory unit, but I think Jenny's just explained that there is a lot of content from Unit 1 and Unit 2, okay, in there, and it is, if you are looking at doing Unit 3 or an optional unit, if you haven't done 2 units, then we would recommend at this moment in time that you would concentrate on the mandatory unit, on the Unit 3. But if you are in the middle of an optional unit, then I would definitely recommend that you complete that unit, and then once you've completed that, then look at completing a mandatory unit if you've got an optional or a mandatory unit.
Penny, can I pop in now, because I'm seeing a
please.
number of questions coming up on the practical. So we know, totally appreciate there are concerns with practical assessment. We have got some slides to support you with what sort of things you can do based on the situation. So that is coming up. So we'll leave those questions for now. And if you feel we haven't answered your questions sufficiently, then we can certainly go back to them.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, thanks Jenny, moving on. So what does it mean for teachers? Well, the standards of all our qualifications of our TEC Award, First Award and BTEC Nationals, the standard of the qualifications cannot change. And that's around GCSE, A-level for all awarding organisations. There cannot be any changes to the assessment criteria. Okay, there are no changes to the assessment criteria unless we have very specifically said so, like in the TEC Award. In the TEC Award, there are some very distinct amendments. But overall, if you're looking at an assessment criteria for the first or for the national, then I think it's really important that you assess your candidates based on the assessment criteria in the spec. But it is the methods of delivery and the methods of assessment that we can change, which I think is what a few queries are coming in. We have, I hope everybody has seen the delivery guidance document. It is on the website and it does cover all the qualifications within the sports sector. There is a link. I will send this presentation out after the meeting, and there is a link, but hopefully everybody has seen it, and it's a guidance document on what can be done, okay, how you can deliver, possible suggestions on how you could deliver some of the units. And there's one for sport and there's one for sport and exercise science, and I've just given you an example of Unit 6 on the sport and exercise science. Now I know not everybody delivers sport and exercise science, but you can see that for Unit 6, okay, what has been suggested is that Learning Aim A and Learning Aim C could be delivered through theory. So for example, if I know lots of candidates are not in school, okay, or year groups are not in school and they're working from home, there are sort of these 2 learning aims, A and C, could be delivered in a theoretical way. And maybe that, if you fear that your school is going to be working from home, you might want to look at which learning aims may be delivered in a theoretical way. But Learning Aim B and D, okay, is sort of more practical, okay, more practical based, and therefore it may be that you really want them to be in school, or you need to think about how they would be able to deliver that outside of school. And they're the delivery guide. There's one for sport and there's one for sport and exercise science. But just as an example, and it doesn't matter whether you're delivering level 1, the first award, or sport. If you're delivering a practical unit, okay, now I know that many centres you have that your most favoured practical activities that you're very familiar with. You have lots of resources for them, but it might be in these situations that it might not be possible to do those. But with BTEC, there are no sports specified on the BTEC qualification, so it might be that you may have to consider a different activity. Now I know that brings so many different challenges, but if most of the qualifications have a practical unit, that is mandatory, and you will have to deliver and assess that unit. So long as the activity has a national governing body, okay, then the learners really should be able to meet the requirements of the assessment criteria. So it might be that you have to choose a different activity than what you would normally do to fulfill the requirements of the practical unit. If whichever activity you choose, okay, the isolated practice, they should be able to do isolated practices and get video evidence without too much difficulty. I do understand games, okay, full competitive games may be more challenging, but isolated practices they should be able to do, even if it's sort of throwing and catching against a wall or something. And maybe it can do it at home or in school. I know that all clubs outside of school are stopping from Thursday, which is sort of a tragedy, okay, but you should be, but I hope that you can still do things in school, or candidates may be able to do some things at home. The conditioned practices, okay, then are they able to do an activity within their bubble? I know that you can't go outside of bubbles. Every school is exactly the same, but are there activities that you could do and learners could stay within their bubbles? It is only required to have one example of a skill for each of the sports, okay, but you do need to meet the requirements of the assessment criteria. Go on, Jenny.
I was going to go, yeah. Yeah, I'm just noticing we're getting quite a few questions coming in related to this, and we totally appreciate that there's difficulties, especially over the next month or so in terms of practical. Certainly it's a case of looking what the NGB says. Rugby, we've got touch rugby in place for many clubs, and schools are taking that on board. So it's looking to the NGB and seeing what guidance they're providing. We are obviously hopeful that this lockdown will only be for the next 4 weeks. Obviously it could go on longer, but obviously do bear in mind we might be able to get back to some form of normality or sort of new norm in the new year. So it doesn't mean to say what's happening now, if you can look to sort of like have assessments perhaps next year when you return to school, and hopefully we'll have the ability to take part in sort of like after school training and clubs to open again, then there is that provision to look forward to in the future. And I'm also seeing some questions coming in about the sort of rehabilitation side of things when you were looking at treatment and working with other participants, other peers. In the sector guide, we did initially say, because these were written when we were properly in lockdown and physical contact with other members outside of the household was not permitted. Obviously, it has moved on from there, and centres have got back to opening, and each centre will have a guide as to what they permit and what they won't permit within their centre. I work in a college myself, and we do have massage courses, and we have got a college policy which shows us what we have to do in order to protect our learners and to protect ourselves in terms of PPE and the wipe down and everything beforehand and afterwards. So it's a case of really looking to see what your centre has available, and if it doesn't have a policy to take into account what you need for the types of assessments you're looking to produce, then it's trying to perhaps work with a COVID officer to try and have that in place if you are comfortable and your learners are comfortable to continue down that route.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. So, I mean, every school is different. Someone's just said about what can their school do. You need to liaise with your school, with your head, with your compliance officer, okay, as to what your school is allowed. Many schools at the moment are still allowed to do activities outside. I know it's really cold, but we're all in this situation together, okay, and we need to be as flexible as we possibly can. Another very popular unit on both level 2 and level 3 is leadership. Okay, and again, we understand that in many situations you used to go to primary schools, or you used to offer it to lead classes lower down the school, and of course we know that that's not possible. So in order to try and help, we need to adapt it where the candidates, the learners, would lead in their own bubble. Now sometimes that can be more challenging than actually leading a different age group. It could even be one-to-one. Okay, so we are aware that I mean, leading, ideally you would be leading a large group, but under these circumstances they need to stay in their bubble, and if they are at home, could they lead somebody at home? It could be a one-to-one, but then you must still meet the requirements of the assessment criteria, which in most of the leadership there is a learning aim that does require video evidence. The application of fitness testing, okay, I know lots of people, lots of centres have some fantastic resources, some fantastic fitness testing equipment. You may not be able to use that, therefore can you do fitness tests outside, okay, where there's a reduction in the amount of equipment. There are lots of fitness tests that can be done outside. So I mean, it is using the resources that you have so that all your learners and staff and everybody concerned are safe. You must follow government, local authority, national governing body guidelines, for example SIMSPA and the national governing bodies, the adapted sports options. So you have to meet the requirements of the assessment criteria, but it's adapting it, adapting the delivery and the methods of assessment for your learners. These examples are all in the teaching and learning guidance document, which I hope that you've all seen. If you haven't, there is a link that I will in the presentation that I will send out to you. Is there anybody that would like to, on the chat, anybody that would like to share something as to what you've done? How have you adapted? Okay, if anyone wants to put something on how they've been creative in maybe doing leadership, or being creative in a practical or something, if anyone would like to share something, because I know I have spoken to many people and I know that different centres are being really creative so that the learners can continue to learn and meet the requirements of the assessment criteria. So the timetables for level 3 for the the TEC award and for level 3, there is a provisional timetable on the website, okay, and you will notice the dates have been put back. I think you're probably all aware that the dates for GCSE and A level have also been put back, and BTEC have followed. So the dates have been put back a little bit. So for example, Unit 1, the proposed, and I need to be really careful here, this is a provisional timetable. I hope there won't be any changes, but there could be, so you do need to keep your eyes and ears open and look on the website for the final timetable. But the provisional timetable is that Unit 1 is at the end of 24th of May, which I think is after the half-term holiday, and then Unit 2 and 19 and 22, they're normally released. Part A is normally released around Easter in April, and it's been put back a few weeks. Sport and exercise science, you can see they're much later, 23rd of June, 16th of June. Okay, so all the exams are slightly have been put back, and they're going to be taking place sort of very end of May and more or less the whole of June. But it is provisional, and that's one thing. I know everyone puts their assessment plan, and you usually plan at the beginning of the year, okay, and it may be very difficult because now you've got a few weeks towards the end of the program, okay, a few additional weeks which you hadn't prepared for. But that's where things are changing all the times, and at least the decision has been made to give a little bit longer for those externals assessment. The external assessment for January, okay, they are at the moment still going ahead. okay, and I hope that learners will be able to sit them, okay, because I know a lot of learners are really working really hard at the moment, and say the plans are that they will continue. They are at the beginning of January, but you need to watch this space. Hopefully we'll be out of lockdown, okay, at the beginning of December, and then people will be able to sit them. There will be some further guidance if candidates are self-isolating, but that will be guidance not just for sport, that will be guidance for every single subject, okay, for BTEC and for some of the GCSEs. So there will be some further guidance as to what to do if you have got candidates who have to self-isolate or aren't very well or whatever. But at the moment, this timetable, as I speak now, is still going ahead. Being asked a question: if students sit external assessment units in January and the government uses centre assessed grades next summer, will retake CAGs be taken into consideration as students are entitled to retake? If I'm not mistaken, I don't think centres were asked to submit predicted grades for external assessment. Okay, that's usually calculated. I think that was calculated based on the scores of the centre assessed grades. And if that was to happen, then I think it would be the same, that it would be the highest grade. With the exams for Unit 2 and 22, we thought they were taking the exams in January. As we are teaching them now, then another unit after the exam in January. They won't be able to have second attempt if they're in year 13. Joe, yeah, there's exams in January and exams in the summer. The exams in January, they are the final timetable. Exams for the summer are the provisional timetable. Oh yeah, that's a really good question, Richard. Can I confirm whether Unit 1 exam for BTEC First in Sport is still on demand? Absolutely. Okay, it is still on screen on demand. It's marked out of 60 and it's an hour and a quarter. So yes, Unit 1 on the BTEC First is continuing as it has done for the last few years, on screen on demand. Was that? I thought that was on the timetable. If I missed it off, I do apologise if Unit 1 isn't on the timetable. Oops. Unit 1? Oh, for January. Did I not put it on? Oops. Okay, I do apologise. Okay, completely my error. Unit 1 should be on there. I don't quite know what's happened when I've copied and pasted, but thanks. Thank you, Anthony, for picking that up. Unit 1 is taking place in January. I do apologise that it's not on there, but Unit 1 for the BTEC National in Sport is taking place. Yeah, okay, Marcus, yes, thank everybody. I do apologise, it just hasn't been copied over, but there is an exam. Unit 1 is taking place in January. And then for those learners who are on the Tech Award, okay, there is an exam on the 2nd of February and in the sort of January-February window, and then there is an exam in the summer on the 24th of May. Okay, so again, that has been put back a little bit from what it normally would be. Just looking, we're planning first round exam November. Yeah, I assume you're talking, Sarah, you assume you're talking about the BTEC First. It is available anytime, so it is on screen on demand. So if you are doing the BTEC First, then it's continuing as it always has been, that it's on screen on demand. And one of those advantages is if you do have candidates who are self-isolating, they could do it sort of a couple of weeks later when they return back to school.
I've got one question in regarding the 2019 Nationals, the fitness qualifications. So those of you that are on those specs, I've just put in chat the access to the document that confirms that SimSpra are happy for us to do assessments with Bubbles, with peers. As you'll know, previously it was deemed not appropriate to be doing any summative assessments with peers. However, SIMPS were obviously aware of the current situation and have permitted that to take place. So if you are delivering the fitness or the coaching, you can work with people within the bubble, as in using peers as clients. So that is acceptable. But it's towards the end of the sector guide, which is, as I said, put in chat. It's also accessed on these slides that Penny is going to give access to after this event.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Zoe, yeah, the Unit 3 is on the timetable. It is just Unit 1 that I've missed off. I do apologise. So I think the main thing to remember is that we are currently working with Ofqual and the DfE on contingency arrangements for further mitigate the impact of increased disruptions, and we will let you know as soon as any decision is made, as soon as there are any changes to anything. There is on the website, there is a section where you can find all the information, but I do appreciate that there is a lot of information, okay, that's coming out all of the time because things are continually changing. So in order to support you, we have got, okay, there are two sessions coming up. One is next Wednesday the 11th of November, and that is a network session, and this is for teachers to share ideas, okay, to share good practice, to share ideas of support effective teaching, okay. It is for level 3 this next week, okay. If anyone would like to attend, again, I'll send the presentation and you click on the link in order to register. It is for level 3. It is a network group, okay, so it is for everyone who wants to share ideas. In order to support people to do a similar sort of session to what we're doing today, we are setting up another session on Wednesday, the 2nd of December. It is, I mean, I know it's only a month away, but actually lots of things are changing on a daily basis. So it will be very similar to this. It will be between 1 and 2 o'clock. Okay, it's a go-to session. It's just a support session to keep you up to date, to make sure that everybody is fully informed as to exactly where we are, and you're not hearing rumours from schools down the road or, okay, on various social media things that may be inaccurate, because there are lots of rumours going around, I am aware. And it will just, like this, I will give you up-to-date information.
I think we're getting a few questions in terms of what do we do? We started mandatory, do we switch to, or we started optional, do we switch to mandatory? You've probably seen part of the suggested approaches that the assessment process is reduced for some of the optional units depending on the size of the course. That's something that's being considered. So that's one of the reasons why we're suggesting mandatory units are delivered and assessed first, in case that does actually come to sort of be decided as an approach to support teachers and learners out there under this difficult situation. So that's the reason why we've got the mandatory units there. As I said, it's still very much under consideration and discussion. We don't know what DfE and Ofqual are going to agree to. We can propose ideas and suggestions, and obviously they need to determine what they think is best for the qualification. So we're still waiting, and that's why we've partly got these additional sessions for you. We're hoping we'll have a little bit more information. We don't have timelines, I'm afraid. Many of you are asking, have you got dates? We'd love to say yes, we do, but unfortunately we don't have any firm dates as to when any decisions are going to be made, as it's an ongoing situation. So so do feel free in terms of wanting to know what the situation is and when it will be, decisions will be made. But I'm sure you'll appreciate there's a lot of evidence that needs to be collated and lots of things are changing on a daily basis.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. I mean, yes, I just want to reiterate what Jenny has said is I know people want to know by such and such a date, or when will a decision be made. It is constantly changing. I mean, sort of we all know that we hear on the news various things on a daily basis, and that's why I have set up another session early December. If you want to come and you can just see if there's any changes, okay, then please just attend, and we will keep you up to date. But at the moment, it is everything needs to be taught. But as Jenny has said, we are still sort of monitoring the situation in case the assessment of any individual unit may not have to be assessed. But that is up for consideration, that is sort of being looked at, but at the moment there are no changes to the assessment for what needs to be assessed for the BTEC First and the BTEC Nationals. Thank you very much, Andrew. For the Unit 1 exam is on the 15th of January. I do apologise, I will change it. I will put it in the slides before I send it out to everyone. But Unit 1, Andrew has just confirmed it's on the 15th of January. I've had a question, actually, which is a really good question from Charlotte about what if students should have sat Unit 1 or 2 exam last year, but they hadn't completed 25% of the course, therefore a grade hasn't been allocated to them. Providing those candidates were entered, if they have got I think it's an absent, okay, by those units because you entered them last year, then they will be given a grade for those exams once you submit enough internally assessed units. So providing that your learners were entered last year for whichever externally assessed unit, okay, they won't have been given a grade because you haven't got any internally assessed units in the bank, but as they will be awarded a grade when the internally assessed units are submitted and approved. Okay, that's the end of the presentation. I know there's lots and lots of questions, and I will sort of look at them now, but that's the end of the presentation. If anybody has got any questions, you can always contact me on 03330 164 100 or at my email teachingpnsport@pearson.com. Okay, and I will always endeavour to answer your queries. There is, again, on the presentation, I have sent the link to where all the latest news is posted that you might want to bookmark and have a look. But if you haven't, then that's the end of the presentation. But I know there's lots of questions, and so I think myself and Jenny will we'll read some out and we'll try and answer them.
Cool, Penny. And as well, I know some of you may well be logging off if you felt you've heard enough and you don't have any questions. I think it's probably worth just promoting an event we've got tomorrow. We're very aware that many of you are in sort of situations where you're having to deliver remote learning or during sort of lockdown, some centres or learners having to isolate. Tomorrow we're doing a quick run through some online digital resources. We developed a new resource for 2019 sports, which we're hoping to launch and have available for sale in the next month or so. We're also going to show some ideas of some free resources that you can access and use with your learners. So we've got a go-to event booked in for tomorrow. If you'd like to attend that, there's still some spaces available for that as well, which you might find useful.
Yeah, and Jenny, that's really, really good. I should have put it on here, but what I will do is I will, in the email that I send you, I will put how to register on the go-to for that event tomorrow. Okay, so I'll just go through the questions, some of the questions that have come in. I know you mentioned it in the process, but do you have a time frame on when the guidance for students self-isolating and taking exams will be released? Zoe, that's a really good question. I don't. I mean, I think what has to happen, because you won't know how many candidates are self-isolating sort of until nearer the time, but I'm sure there will be some guidance as to what it will be. For the first award level 2, are we saying that we need to deliver and assess a non-mandatory unit? Yeah, Marcus, absolutely. Okay, you at this moment in time, candidates need to have been assessed in the 3 mandatory units and the 1 optional unit. What we are saying is, if you are delivering the units, to concentrate on the mandatory units, but it is the learners need to be taught and assessed in all 4 units on the BTEC level 1 / level 2.
We're also getting some questions coming in about the SV process. So currently the plan is to SV as normal, but clearly SVs are going to be mindful of the fact that it's not been a normal year last year, and it's not a normal year this year. So based on, we are planning to SV during the January to May window as usual. People have asked, is there sort of the opportunity to submit units that aren't complete or that sort of thing? The plan is to carry on as normal, just as in with the teaching, assessment and delivery side of things, unless we can put some, or there is a need to put adaptations in place, then that is something that will be confirmed and cleared by DFE and, of course, should it need to happen. But in the meantime, it's very much cases try and carry on with your BTEC provision, your delivery and assessment as you normally would, given these strange situations. And if there are any adaptations or anything like that that can be permitted, then we will be sure to contact you and make you aware of that as soon as anything like that should come through and be confirmed. But currently we don't have anything to say that. It's carry on as in the BTEC assessment process as usual.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. A couple of people are asking about what happens if learners are self-isolating during the prep time. They're really good questions. What we will do is we'll take those back to the team and try and get some FAQs for those, because they are obviously very concerning to many teachers, and I will definitely take those questions back, and hopefully we will have some confirmation sort of really quite soon. Kieran's asked a question: are CAGs for mandatory units being taught during lockdown banked, or do we need to go back and finish these units instead of optional? If you submitted a CAG for any unit, whether it's an optional unit or a mandatory unit, and you look on edX online and your learners have got a grade on there, then you do not have to do anything else with those units. So if you submitted a CAG for whatever reason last year, okay, and that your learners have got a grade on edX online, then as far as Pearson is concerned, those units have been finished and you do not need to do anything with them. Okay, obviously, if you want to, if a learner wants to sort of resubmit some evidence or try and improve their grade, then they are able to have a resubmission for work that was given a CAG. But if you've submitted a CAG last year and the marks, the grades are on the system, you don't need to do anything. Okay, thanks, Liam. Okay. If we claimed a CAG grade for 1 out of 3 assignments delivered in Unit 2 before lockdown, I was under the impression we didn't have to complete the 2nd and 3rd assignment. As yeah, you're right, Joe. I mean, you actually submitted a CAG for a whole unit. You did not submit a CAG for 1 learning aim or 2 learning aims. You submitted a CAG. If that's right, and you submitted a CAG, it was for the whole unit. That's right. That's what I think. What I've just said. Rianne has asked, will it be an issue if we do not have complete units for SV in May? I mean, we have always said that you need to have completed units for the SV to be able to sample. It is something that you would need to discuss with your SV. But if on your assessment plan there was no time to complete the rest of the rest of the unit, then that would be a problem. So it is you need to make sure that your plan allows you to complete all the units, all the learning aims by the end of the course. And if you've you've got an SV in May and you haven't finished it, then they will consider it. But of course, if there's a whole unit that you haven't started, okay, by the end of May, then questions will be asked, because there's no way that you would finish it before the end of the qualification. I think, Jenny, have you got anything to add to that?
No, nothing
No,
more than what you've just said. Thanks, Penny.
Yeah, actually, Simon's got a question about work experience. Work experience is really difficult. If you haven't started it and you normally deliver it, I would avoid it. Okay, if at all possible, I would probably avoid work placement at this moment in time. If you have already started it, or you started it last academic year and you've still got placement, is there any possibility those learners could do some work experience in your centre with in their bubbles, or well, in your centre? It is a very difficult situation. We do understand that, Simon. I mean, it might be that hopefully from January that there might be a little bit opening up. Maybe they can do something after that. But it is, if you haven't started it, and even if you do normally do work placement, if you haven't started it, I would definitely recommend that you consider a different unit. Oh, Scott, for sport and exercise science, has the research method topic been released yet? Scott, for the 2019, it has actually. I did see it the other day, so it is on the website. Scott, I will send that to you separately. It is for. I'm sure you're talking the 2019 spec. Yeah, David, you've asked a question. Or do all units on the BTEC first level 2 in sport need to be assessed? Yes, at this moment in time, then it is expected that you assess all the 4 units on the BTEC first, okay, but we are recommending that you complete the mandatory units first. We are, in one of the slides, it does say we are in consultation with Ofqual and DFE as to whether any more adaptations need to be made. But at this moment in time, you need to sort of plan that you can actually complete the whole course. Yeah, if we book Unit 1 exam for BTEC first and their students cannot sit it due to lockdown, will they be able to claim this or redo it later in the course? Yeah, I mean, if they can't complete it, then you are able to book it for another date when you sort of, if they're self-isolating, then maybe sort of 2 weeks later. But I mean, at the moment, all schools are open, okay, and so learners should be able to sit it. But I do understand that maybe they're in the bubble, okay, and they're having to self-isolate, or they're having to work from home. So what I would do, Tom, is then just amend it to 2 weeks later, or whenever it's convenient for all of you. Yeah, Lucy, that's a good question. If we've been given grades for Unit 1, are the pupils allowed to take the exam twice if they need to get better grades? For the BTEC first, then if they've got a grade, then they can resit it once. Okay, for the nationals, they can resit it twice. I mean, that's brilliant if you've got time for them to resit it. So yes, if they've been given a grade, they are allowed to resit it once on the first. Oh yeah, Gareth, great. Thanks, Gareth. Gareth has said, please utilise your CDMs, those centres deliver in 2019. Watch out for the session tomorrow that may be useful. Okay, I will send out the link to the webinar tomorrow that Jenny spoke about. Okay, what if level 3 learners have not progressed with us, therefore may not have more level 3 units this year? Will they get a grade for external assessment or unit 1 or 2? So Philip, I'm not sure I understand the question. What if level 3 learners have not progressed with us this year, therefore may not have more level 3 units? I mean, if they're not on the course, then they won't get a grade. Great, that's great. Emma, thanks. You're going to join on the 2nd. Thanks, Michelle. Okay, thanks, Andrew. What happens to the preparation time if they're in isolation? Emma, that's a really good question. Many of you have that. We will take that back, and hopefully there will be some further guidance coming out very soon. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Chris. When we banked grades due to lockdown, we were able to continue online with additional assignments. Some students adapted to online, working better than others, and actually got a better grade than that was estimated. So can we alter the bank grade? This is for the National Diploma for Skill Acquisition.
If it's been a resubmission in a resubmission approach, so if they, that you certainly can have that approach. As far as I'm aware, that's something that has been a CAG can be if they do resubmission or submit some work, then I believe they do have the opportunity to have that resubmitted and a higher grade achieved.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Robin's asked a question for pupils who started a unit last year but didn't finish. Are they expected to complete this unit year, or will they be given a centre assessed grade for the unit? At this moment in time, there are no centre assessed grades expected to be submitted. So if they didn't complete a unit last year and they weren't given a centre assessed grade last year, then we would expect there to be them to have completed the assessment and for their work to be available for the SV should it be asked for. If my students are being assessed in their practical sport outside of school, what do they do for the competitive element, or can they just do drills, drills isolated? Katie, that's a really good question. For the assessment criteria, they do have to have skills in isolation and in a competitive formal situation. I mean, I know lots of, well, everything is closing down from Thursday. If they do competitive sport outside, maybe can you wait until hopefully we'll be able to do the sports early next year. Okay, are you able to wait there for the competitive situation? They could still possibly do the drills in isolation, but you may have to wait for the competitive situation. No, Joanne, so if those units that were submitted as a CAG, will they get called for SV? Absolutely not. If you submitted last year, okay, last summer, and you submitted a CAG for a unit, then that's finished. Okay, it will not be called upon for SV this year, but it must have been submitted last year. Okay, what if the grades are not on the system? If the grades aren't on the system, then they need to produce evidence this year. Is there a chance that the January exams will be pushed back for sport and exercise science? Sean, that's a good question. At this moment in time, it is not expected that exams will be pushed back in January. If resubmitting CAG work, do they need to do all assignments, even if they're only completed Learning Aim A originally? No, that's a really good question, Rebecca. Maybe I'm not quite sure of that answer, so let me find that out and I'll get back to you, Rebecca. Thanks, Emma. Yeah, I'm probably not going to send the recording out, okay, but you can have the presentation. Okay, no, Kieran, if you didn't submit a CAG, then they're not on the system, so you will have to produce evidence and mark the work for this year. Yeah, Robin, could you confirm if CAG that were sent for partially completed units, are these counting, or do we need to go back and finish a unit? If you submitted a CAG last summer, then that unit is completed. Okay, that's finished. Okay, if you've got time and you want to, then you can. But as far as Pearson is aware, that candidate has got a mark on a grade on the system. Okay, and you do not need to submit any more evidence. And if it was a CAG last year, it will not be asked for the SV this academic year. Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Joe. Oh, Robin. Oh yeah, sorry. Thanks, Jenny. You've answered that. Oh, hang on. Scott, thank you. It's for the 2016 sports science.
Oh, it's okay. I've answered that one.
Oh,
Penny.
sorry. I'm a bit slow. I'm really slow. I'm going down. Okay. If they don't call the CAGs, which we had to appeal to be accepted, then the year 13s won't have any work to send off, as they are doing 2 exam units in January and then 2, and of course, no. I mean, yeah, Joanne, maybe we can talk about that as your maybe a slightly individual centre, which we can talk about. We sent CAG. If there's nothing online, I don't think you sent a CAG, Robin. It's something you need to discuss with your exams officer. Could you get back to everyone re-CAG'd? If only did learning aim A, do they only have to resubmit that learning aim to get a higher grade, or do they have to have additional units? I need to get back to you, Sarah. I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to give false information, so I will get back to you. Okay, it's now 3 o'clock. I hope, and I've got to the end of those questions, I hope that I've answered as many as I possibly can, and Jenny. So thank you, Jenny, for supporting me, and thanks, Gareth, for answering your question and giving out some information. So yeah, I'll be here for a couple of more minutes, but we will be logging off very shortly. So thank you, stay safe, stay well, and I hope it's been supportive to everyone. And I'm stopping recording. Thank you. Bye-bye.